Welcome to What No One Knows, the podcast that tells the secret behind the published books, hosted by Lisa Marie Garcia, the Chief Operating Officer of Now Publishing, a full-service book publishing and author PR firm. Through the years in the publishing industry, we've heard the statement over and over, "This is what no one knows," when we interview would-be authors wishing to tell their story. This is what this podcast is all about. And now to our podcast and our host, Lisa Marie Garcia.
Hello, this is Lisa Marie Garcia with the podcast, What No One Knows. I'm so excited that you're joining us today for this episode. And we have an author of a beautiful children's book. And actually, it's our first podcast of a children's book author. Her name is Alyana VERAS, and she is the mother of two very special and precious darling girls. I can say that because I've seen them in person and I watched them online. She has a special love for writing when she came to Now Publishing, and she wanted to write the books that she would read to her children. So her book is called Why Do I Have a Tummy Ache? And she joins us today as we're going to dig a little bit deeper and talk about her journey as a young mom. Hello, Alyana. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
Well, we're excited to talk to you. I want to just share with the listeners as this show, we have our key question of what no one knows that we'll get to a little bit later in the show. But what I'd like to talk about is, how you went from, we call it idea to author, but really even more so when we met you, you had your first daughter only. And, you were in a different space and time, obviously. It's been, I think, about 2 years now since you've been published. And I'd like you to share with the listeners and those moms that, feel like they have a children's book or books on their heart. How did you get from that idea to, I'm going to make my dream happen?
It was actually a pretty long process. I had a bunch of ideas in my head and I was writing them down in the notes section of my iPhone, and I was just writing a bunch of stories. And I've always loved creative writing. I've loved rhyming words, poetry, alliteration. All of that has been like something that makes me happy. So when I had my first daughter in 2015, I was reading her a lot of books, and I kept thinking, well, why don't I do this? I have such a great love for it, and I could totally do this. So I started writing them down, and then I really didn't know where to start as far as finding a publisher. And then my brother actually met you guys, Now Publishing, in Tampa, and he told me about you. So that's when I finally just decided to make the call and make the connection. And from there, it was just, it was a process, which it wasn't a super short process, but I was pregnant with my second at the time. So it was just so much going on, dealing with pregnancy and, editing my first book. And, it was all very new to me, but it did come to fruition, and it was something very special to my heart. I'm so happy that I now have this book to hold on to and share with my children through the years.
I remember that time. So you were pregnant with your second daughter and you were pregnant with the book coming out at the same time. That was fun, right?
Right. And our illustrator was also pregnant.
So that's right. I had forgotten about that. Yeah. Alexis. That's right. She was. It's funny how time goes. So we did a few readings or a couple readings with our company. Have you had opportunity to do some readings on your own with some moms in your community, or maybe talk about something fun that you did with the book?
I have. So I'm part of a couple of mommy groups, or at least when I did live in Florida, I was part of a few mommy groups. And I had a friend whose, daughter was in, I believe, first grade, and she invited me to come to her school and sit in her daughter's class and read the book. And that was super special to me. And the kids were adorable. First grade, they had a lot of questions, and it was just so cute, and they were just excited to hear more. So I have to get on, writing more. But I was able to do that in that school. And then I also, when I moved to Orlando, I read my book to a bunch of children in a children's boutique. So she sells a lot of toys, and she also sells some books from local authors. And the owner of the boutique invited me to come and do a reading on a Friday morning, which was awesome.
How fun was that? It's fun to be in retail too. Before the pandemic and all of that. I hope we get back to there, but it's always interesting and fun, and you get to meet people that you get to see how they treat their clients and the atmosphere and all of that. So that's super fun. I remember seeing some posts on that. I think I saw with some pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that's very unique about your book, besides the illustrations are so unique and the story is unique, and again, it's called Why Do I Have a Tummy Ache? Picture of sugary foods, ice cream, cupcake, lollipop, you name it. And just a sweetheart story when, big surprise, Lily, who is named after your oldest daughter, right?
Her character is just like my oldest daughter. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Sweet tooth, big time.
Sweet tooth, big time. How's that going with the COVID and all of that these days?
Still definitely, the same with her sweet tooth. She loves her sweets, but she does know that everything is in moderation. So, but yeah, everything has been going well. Yeah.
How old are your girls now?
Now they are 3 and 5.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe she's 5.
Yes. My oldest is now in kindergarten.
Oh, is it virtual or is it online for kindergarten?
It's virtual. So that's been a real learning curve for me as the coordinator of the virtual learning coordinator, being on top of her schedule and on top of this app and that app and the Zoom calls and making sure she's on time and, don't be eating on the call, put your toys away. So it's just been interesting, to say the least.
Well, definitely a struggle, heard around the nation, right?
Right.
It's just, I love that. I love, who would know your one of your titles would be the VLC, the Virtual Learning Coordinator.
Right?
I know, it's crazy.
I'm like, hey, I didn't sign up for this homeschooling thing, but I guess I was forced into it.
You're forced into it, absolutely. But then also just, when it all comes, and I know you feel this way because I, know you, this idea that, you're blessed to be able to do it, to be there. It's sure hard on those families that, are having to juggle all this and 2 full-time jobs and the whole thing, outside the house.
Right.
For sure. The funny thing, I'm just going to digress here for 1 minute and talk about my own daughters who are now freshmen and sophomores in high school. Can't believe they're now 3 and 5. I know.
Goodness.
I know. It's crazy. The funny thing was, though, I had been telling them my whole life, because it had come up over the years, Mom, will you homeschool us? And I have been telling them my whole life, I'm sorry, but you did not get a mom that can be a homeschool teacher. I had no desire to do it. I didn't want to do it and all that. So their whole life they've been hearing that. So then comes to the COVID shut-in to finish out their 8th and 9th grade years last year. And now, and how fortunate for me that they didn't require any supervision whatsoever to do their schooling online because, they were already on, they already both had iPads in their schools. They are perfectly capable of doing their own schedule and achieving the grades they need. So I just thought, yeah. What was that?
They're more independent, so that's more helpful for you, right?
Oh,
right.
Completely helpful. So I felt for the moms that it was, a whole new life and it added more hours and tasks to their day. But I didn't have to experience it. So I feel blessed for that. So, all right. So back to your life and your, in the space that you're in right now, being a children's book author. One of the very unique parts of Why Do I Have a Tummy Ache? And in fact, of all the children's books that Now Publishing has produced, this is the only children's book that is written in prose, in poetry. Tell us about that. I mean, it's a very sweet, sweet story, but you write it with the poetry. How, why poetry? Tell us how that came to be.
Okay, so my oldest, when I started reading to her when she was a baby, but I noticed that, I had all different kinds of books. I had some that were about, shapes or colors or whatever it is, but I noticed that she had a lot more interest in the books that had like a more rhymey or sing-songy tone to them. When I would read them, she'd be more interested. She'd be more focused on it. If they didn't rhyme, I kind of felt like it wasn't as interesting for her. So I figured if I were going to make a book, I wanted it to be something that my own children would be very interested in and that they would love. So I wanted to make sure that I incorporated that as well as the fun, bright colors and beautiful pictures because not only are the pictures art, but so are the words, right? So I
Right.
wanted to make sure that it was enticing in both ways. And I wanted to make it really, really interesting, not just to see, but to hear. So, and I also love writing poetry. I always have. So it was also fun for me to write.
It's so sweet. We also, what was really fun about this book, I was looking for it the other day, is this was the only children's series book that we put into the audio, and it was actually
Right.
yeah, and that it was just an excellent audio for children's books. I hadn't heard of that at the time, but we made "Why Do I Have a Tummy Ache" into it, and it was actually like, I mean, it's different than an audio. It was like a acted out audiobook,
Right. It
right?
was a whole experience. And they even added like sound effects. It was so cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, I loved it too. In fact, we need to probably bring that up. We actually have just started to do our audios for all of our authors in Audible, and that for our trade authors. So, but yours was one of
That's
the first in audio.
amazing.
It is really fun. Thank you. So, one of the questions I would ask you to answer would be, what would you tell someone that might be kind of, teetering, and especially with this pandemic, there's definitely been a surge of reading, there's been a surge of writing, there's been a surge of journaling, and more so, I was just actually finishing a book last night, and the whole chapter was on purpose, and it's like, we all, we know as human beings, we're always searching for our purpose, but even more so now when this world's been turned upside down, people are really trying, a majority of them, from what I read and hear and watch, are stepping back and reassessing, right? So what would you say, given the changes you've made just even in the, 2 years that we've known you and accomplishing being a published book author, what would you say to someone that's at that precipice of deciding to make a decision to move forward with the dream they have?
I would say that there's no time like the present. I mean, I spent so much time just kind of wondering and thinking and asking everybody, how do I get started? Where do I go? And a lot of people had advice, and ultimately it was just up to me to make phone calls and kind of just like if you're going shopping, right? If you're at the store and you're comparing and seeing, what kind of reviews do these people have, or what am I going to have to pay? What is it going to look like? How long is the process going to take? So I would say definitely have a list of questions in mind for what they want to know based on what kind of book they want to write. Obviously a children's book author is going to have different needs than maybe like somebody that's writing an autobiography. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I was working with people, and it was really cool that who I'm working with also share my faith. So it was just really good that it worked out that way. But I would say definitely start looking around, start calling around, have questions in your mind already, write them down, and then get started with the process. Like look around and find, what works for you. And otherwise it's just never going to happen. I felt like I spent so much time just waiting and wondering instead of just getting out there and making those calls and, figuring out where to start. But yeah, I would say just start calling around to different publishers. They don't have to be local, but doing a lot of searching on the internet to see, what the different possibilities are. That was definitely the hardest part for me, was just getting out there and like getting that first step done. It was just finding someone and saying, okay, I'm going to sign on the dotted line. I'm ready to do this. Let's go.
Great advice, absolutely. And I love what you said. Ultimately, it's up to me. We talk about sometimes how actions speak louder than words, and it's really people dream, people want, people wish, people say one day, and ultimately, what's the action? Like you said, ultimately the action was, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do the action, whether it was negotiate with us and sign the contract like it was. I love that. I'm going to share something. It brings us up, and this podcast does happen to be recorded during the COVID shut-in times, as we've talked about. And I'll tell you, the first week of March, so we hadn't gone into the shutdown yet. I think we were a couple weeks away from it. I was notified that Andrew Meyer, who was the owner of Continental Wholesale Jewelers in Tampa Bay, we were working with him to write his book, and a great philanthropist, great man, really amazing guy. We got word over